The lighting in the restaurant was carefully designed to create a sense of intimacy, masking the cold reality of the conversation Myra had arranged. She sat across from me, her posture stiff, her hands trembling slightly around a wine glass she hadn't touched. She presented it as a moment of honesty, but it felt more like a strategic meeting. When she said the words, "I'm pregnant," I didn't feel shock. I felt clarity. I waited for the part I knew was coming. "It's not yours," she added, her voice suddenly steadier, sharper. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched the candlelight flicker in her eyes, searching for even the smallest trace of remorse. There was none. What I saw was a woman who had already moved on to the next stage of her plan. She told me about Adrian, a man she had met during a recent trip, a man who represented the future she had already chosen while still living in the house I paid for. My silence unsettled her. She expected anger. She expected a scene. She expected something she could later point to as proof that I was abusive. I gave her nothing except a blank stare. Then came the ultimatum. She didn't want a divorce. Not yet. She wanted me to sign on as the father, raise another man's child, and continue funding the life we had built together. If I refused, she promised to use every legal avenue available to tear apart my business and claim half the assets I had spent 15 years building. She had spoken with a lawyer before she ever told me about the pregnancy. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a hostage negotiation. I nodded, signaled for the check, and told her I needed time to process everything. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with my brother Daniel, a man who understands the cold mechanics of property law better than anyone I know. We sat in his kitchen, the air heavy with the realization that the life I knew was ending. At the same time, another life was beginning, the life of a free man. Daniel warned me that Myra would position herself as the victim. He said she would use the pregnancy as a shield against criticism and accountability. I told him I wasn't interested in judgment. I was interested in survival. Together, we began planning our response, treating the divorce the same way someone might approach a corporate merger, methodically, strategically, without emotion. The following day, I returned to our house while she was away. I didn't search for old photographs or sentimental keepsakes. I went directly to the digital evidence. I accessed her laptop, a computer I had purchased for her birthday, and found an archive of betrayal. The messages between her and Adrian laid out every detail of their deception. They didn't just discuss their relationship. They discussed me. They talked about how predictable I was, how much I valued peace, how those traits could be used against me to secure a profitable outcome. Reading my kindness described as a weakness was the final push I needed. From that moment forward, everything became about information management. Myra had already started shaping the narrative, telling mutual friends that I had become distant, cold, and aggressive. I didn't respond with arguments. I didn't engage in public drama. Instead, I visited her closest friend, Olivia. I showed her a single screenshot. In it, Myra laughed about the comfortable life I was unknowingly financing for her and her lover. I calmly explained that if she continued helping spread false stories, she could be subpoenaed regarding her role in the defamation. The rumors stopped that same evening. Overnight, I was no longer the villain in the neighborhood story. My attorney, Harold, specialized in high-asset divorce cases. He reviewed the evidence I had gathered, the recordings of the ultimatum, the financial discussions with Adrian, the timeline of the affair. For the first time, he smiled. He explained that Myra had made a serious tactical mistake by linking her pregnancy to a financial demand. In the eyes of the court, it wasn't simply a request for support. It looked like an attempt at extortion. The next morning, we filed for divorce. Along with it came a request for a paternity test and a motion to protect the business assets. The courtroom confrontation lacked all the emotion Myra had anticipated. She arrived with her attorney prepared to present herself as a vulnerable woman abandoned during a difficult time, But when the recordings were played, the atmosphere changed instantly. The courtroom fell silent. The judge heard Myra's own voice, clear, calculated, offering me a choice between accepting a lie or facing financial destruction. There was no reasonable defense for that. The judge ruled that the prenuptial agreement, which Myra believed she could bypass through claims of emotional distress, remained fully enforceable. The business stayed protected. The house remained solely mine. As we left the courthouse, Myra stopped me on the steps. She looked smaller than I remembered. The confidence that once surrounded her had been stripped away by the unemotional reality of the legal process. She asked how I could be so cold, how I could walk away from years of history without tears. I told her she had mistaken my self-control for a lack of feeling. In truth, it was simply my refusal to let her emotions dictate my future. She had played a game believing I was the pawn. Only at the end did she realize I owned the board. The months that followed were spent rebuilding. The silence inside my home no longer felt tense. It felt peaceful. From a distance, I watched her relationship with Adrian collapse beneath the weight of real responsibility. Without my income supporting their fantasy, the illusion quickly disappeared. That's when I understood something important. Betrayal is often a hidden blessing, a forced exit from a life built on unstable ground. I am not the same man I was before, and for that I am grateful. I chose self-respect over a comfortable lie. Every decision I make now belongs entirely to me, free from the influence of someone who viewed my loyalty as a resource to exploit. The road ahead may be solitary, but it is honest, it is clean, and it is mine. I look toward the future without regret, knowing that the price of my freedom was high, but the value of my dignity will always be higher.